Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked on Wolves. Today on the show, we're going to talk about Anthony Edwards. We'll call them challenges on the offensive end of the floor to this point in the season. He's had a great year, but can he put it all together? It's either one thing or another that's not going right for him. We'll talk about what that is lately and what he could potentially do to fix it. Also previewing part 2 of the Wolves-Pelicans matchup tonight. It's all upcoming. Welcome in. You are Locked on Wolves.
You are Locked on Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked on Wolves podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Beecken. I'm the host of Locked on Wolves. Today's episode is brought to us by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you place your first $5 bet, and it wins. $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy weekend. Happy Timberwolves game day. The Wolves take on the Pelicans tonight. Amidst all of the college madness this week, the Timberwolves will be back at home playing the New Orleans Pelicans once again, hoping for a very different result than we got 48 hours ago. We'll talk about that toward the end of the show. Just a couple of quick things that the Wolves should do differently, besides play harder, because that would help quite a bit compared to what happened on Wednesday. That was the chief issue in Wednesday's loss. But we'll talk about a couple other things as well with that. But first, I want to spend most of the show talking about Anthony Edwards. I want to talk about Ant's offensive game, what hasn't gone right of late for Ant, kind of different phases of his season in terms of what he's been doing well versus what he's not doing well. Understanding that the body of work is still the best offensive season that he's had in his career. So we're still trending in the right direction. The arrow's still pointing up. But what have the issues been, and how could he take this thing from good to great? So we'll do that here for most of the show today. First, though, a big thank you for making Locked on Wolves your first listen every day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked on Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked on Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. And a reminder, you can also subscribe to the daily Locked on Wolves email newsletter at lockedondaily.com. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your door, right to your inbox, not right to your door, your inbox door, your email door, if you will. Sign up for free right now at lockedondaily.com. Okay. So Anthony Edwards, offensively this season, there's a lot that's gone right. And we can start there. Obviously, the three-point shooting is the big one. Volume-wise, accuracy-wise, both, league high. Well, not accuracy in terms of league high, but most made threes, most three-point attempts, basically for the entire season. He's still shooting 40%, despite some recent issues that we'll talk about. But sitting here right now, he's shooting 10.1 threes per game and making 4 of them, so 40%. His three-point rate tells us that he's shooting 49.4% of his shot attempts from three, which is way above last year, which was a career low 34%. So he's shooting, last year he shot just over a third of his shots from outside the arc of his field goal attempts, and this year he's just a shade under 50%, a shade under half. It actually was kind of surprising when I dug into this a bit. His second season in the league, he was actually 48% of his shots from three. And he got to the line less than he's getting to the line this season. Of course, back then, he only shot 35.7%, which was nearly league average. Like it was passable. He was still a good offensive player in year 2 of his career. But he wasn't as good defensively, and he wasn't playmaking, and it was pretty much just shooting threes was really what he was doing, and also more mid-range shots then. So he has progressively gotten better. Like I do want to preface this whole conversation by acknowledging Ant is still a phenomenal offensive player. He's still getting better. He's better offensively this year than he was last year, and he was better last year than the year before. Like, he's still trending in the right direction. I feel like we have the same Ant conversation at this time in the season every year, which is he starts the year slow, and we're like, wait a minute. Well, actually, it's funny. It's a little bit different this year. So I guess I take back what I just said. The last couple of years, we've had this conversation of, okay, he started the year slow. He has some sort of like injury deal in the middle of the season or just slows down a little bit. Then he makes a little bit of a leap. And then around this time, it's like, oh man, this guy's the second coming of MJ. And, the arrow's pointing dramatically up, and then we do the offseason thing where is he MJ, and then by we, I mean the national media, because Wolves fans aren't doing that. And then in the fall, he takes a slight step back. This year, it's actually been a little bit different. He was lights out in the fall and in the winter in terms of shooting the ball, but there were other things that weren't going well. And now the shooting's coming back, I don't want to say down to earth, because it's still been really good, and we'll talk through those numbers. But some of the other stuff isn't as good, and the team isn't winning to the level that they should be. I know they just won 8 in a row, but of course the last 2 losses, at least from a vibe standpoint, feel like they've undone all of the goodwill from the 8-game winning streak, all the good vibes from the 8-game winning streak. And it just kind of feels like now Ant's just like, is he different than he was a year ago? Is he different than he was in the fall? Has he really improved? The short answer is yes, but it's been very incremental this season. We talked about the 3-point shooting already, and I want to build a lot of what I'm going to talk about today off of. I want to give a hat tip to Jace Frederick on X. Of course, Jace Frederick, the fantastic Timberwolves beat reporter for the St. Paul Pioneer Press. Something I've talked about on this show quite a bit, it has been Ant's shot mix. And we're going to talk about that today. Like, he's shooting a bunch at the rim and a bunch outside the arc and not a whole lot in between. I've talked more about the mix than I have about the accuracy. And that's because he's beginning to line a lot more recently, which he wasn't doing early in the year, and he's still shooting a high volume of threes and still making a high volume of threes. But I haven't paid a lot of attention to the accuracy in between, and even the accuracy at the rim, because he gets fouled so much. But at the end of the day, when you look at the box score and you see a line like Ant just put up, he was 5 of 19 against New Orleans. Yeah, he got to the line 17 times. Or the night before, he was 9 of 24, or the game before, 9 of 24 against the Pacers. But he got to the line 20 times. Then we focus less on the actual shot accuracy because he's getting to the line so much, and he's making, like in the Pacers game, in the Pelicans game, he made 4 threes. The game before against Utah, he made 5. He's still making so many threes that we're not focusing on the accuracy of the 2-point shots. And to be clear, it matters a little bit less because the frequency with which he's shooting from the mid-range and non-paint twos and non-restricted area twos is relatively lower relative to what it has been in past seasons. So that's why I haven't focused a ton on it. But it's been a little bit of a blind spot, admittedly, that I haven't focused on enough. And so hat tip to Jace Frederick for tweeting this out. I'll just read his tweet. This is from after the game Wednesday night, so I guess it posted early Thursday. Jace says, Ant has been one of the elite 3-point shooters this year. Everywhere else has not been great. In restricted area, Ant shooting 61%, which is only 57th out of 51 players with 230 or more attempts. Okay, only 4 players are shooting worse from the restricted area. In the paint, non-restricted area. So outside 3 feet in the paint. Just 40.1%, which is 39th out of 41 players with 200 or more attempts. Only 2 players worse. In the mid-range, which he doesn't define here, but I'm assuming it's basically non-paint twos, 36.2%. That's dead last. 52nd out of 52 players that have attempted at least 100 mid-range shots. That's not good. Put simply, I want to dig into the frequency because, again, that's why I have allowed this to be a little bit of a blind spot. But at this point, it's absolutely worth having the conversation. I want to talk about the frequency with which he's shooting from these different areas and what needs to be tweaked for Ant. Because can he do both? Like, can he keep up the 3-point volume, still get to the line? And also, I have a little bit of a theory on the restricted area and paint non-restricted area twos. I have a little bit of a theory there that I want to get into. So we'll do that next, and then we'll close by talking Wolves Pelicans, and we'll do all that here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends over at Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. It's super easy to find the right talent at Upwork. Maybe you need help with a marketing campaign. Upwork can help connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. Plus, there's fast and easy hiring through Upwork. Posting a job is free, and it's super simple. Within a day, you'll get multiple qualified candidates to choose from, and it'll help you with cost-effective growth. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork, UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Today's episode is also brought to us by our title sponsors over at FanDuel. March Madness is here. Day 1 is in the books. Day 2 is ongoing right now. FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Day 1, we didn't see anything too crazy other than McNeese State beating Clemson. There's always at least one 12-5 upset. Nothing even close to, nothing greater than that, right? No 13, 14, 15, 16 seeds winning in day 1, which is, of course, the norm, but we've gotten used to that happening a little bit here recently. We'll see what day 2 has in store. We'll see how far McNeese can go. Now that they're in the round of 32, we did see the 10-7 Arkansas beat Kansas, which maybe wasn't all that surprising. There was Drake won as an 11 seed, which I did pick myself, by the way. There's lots to get into at FanDuel with this. You can stay in the action throughout the tournament. Of course, tournament games happen all weekend this weekend, so there's something exciting to bet on all the time. The FanDuel app is super simple to use. When you win, you get paid instantly with no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com. Get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Again, FanDuel.com to get in on the tournament action all tournament long. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Ant's the shot distribution in addition to the accuracy. So we've kept an eye on this all season, and it was one of the things coming into the year, and I've referenced this a couple of times, and I'll mention it again. Back before the season, back in August, I did the Locked On Fantasy Basketball show with the great Josh Lloyd. If you're into fantasy basketball, that is Locked On Fantasy is the place to go. Josh does a phenomenal job. And I should have listened to him more this season. I didn't have the best fantasy basketball season myself, but anyway. We were previewing the Timberwolves, and he was asking me what it would take for Ant to push being the league leader in scoring. And I think maybe I predicted that he would finish top 3 in MVP voting or something. That's obviously not going to happen. Or maybe it was top 3 in scoring. I made some prediction like that. And I basically said what Ant needs to do to average 30 points a game is to take what he's doing in the mid-range, attempt 1 to 2 more shots at the rim and 1 to 2 more shots outside the arc. That was my pitch to Josh for how Ant could get to 30 points per game. And that's kind of sort of happened. He's shot less for the mid-range, and he has increased his points per game average, of course. He's gone from 25.9 last year to 27.6. So he's added 1.7 points per game to his average. It's, of course, a career high. It's trended up every single year in terms of the volume-based scoring, the points per game. And in terms of the shot distribution, that is basically what's happened. The problem is, and the reason why he hasn't made the leap all the way to 30, is early in the season, he wasn't getting to line as much. Now, he's not making shots that are, he's not making the shots that he's not getting fouled on. All the percentages I just rattled off last segment that Jace posted about are the issue. I will say also, I said that he would be attempting, that he needed to attempt more shots at the rim. That hasn't happened if you look at the actual percentage of his shots he's taken there, but it's mostly because, well, there's 2 reasons. One is early in the season, as I mentioned, he wasn't getting into the paint as much. He was comfortable just shooting threes. Now, more recently, he's getting fouled all the time, but when he's not getting fouled, or when he doesn't get the call at least, he's not making shots. And, of course, then that doesn't show up as a field goal attempt if he's fouled and doesn't make the shot, right? If it's an and one, it does. If he misses and is fouled, then it doesn't count as a shot attempt. So, as of now, Basketball Reference, inside 3 feet, inside the restricted area, he's only shooting 17% of his shots, 17.4% inside 3 feet, which is 5% less than last year. That's a huge drop-off. It's by far the lowest of his career. In fact, before last year, the lowest was 28%. So it's nearly 11% of his shots 11% less of his shots coming inside the restricted area than any other season before last year. Which is, of course, a trend. Like, you look at any player over the course of their career, that happens as you don't want the contact. You get older, you do start to get more calls. Like when I was comparing Ant's numbers to Kevin Durant a few weeks ago, I forget what I was doing on the show, but Kevin Durant's a great example. I mean, all these guys, it's the case. Now, the difference is, yes, Ant's added the three-point shot, but he's also not making shots from the mid-range when he does attempt them. Inside 10 feet, he's attempting only 16% of his shots, which is down 3% from last year from that space. From 10 feet to the three-point line, again, the reason I hadn't really cited the accuracy there is because the frequency isn't there. He's only shooting 16% of his shots, close to 17% of his shots, from outside 10 feet inside the three-point line. Last year, that was 23%. So that increase in two-point shots last season that I was so worried about, that I talked about with Josh Lloyd back in August, that's actually gone away. He went from shooting almost 23% of his shots there to only about 17% of his shots there. Take that 6%, take some of the stuff from 3 to 10 feet, all that's going to the three-point line. And I don't think that inside the restricted area, if we look at all the attempts in which he's been fouled on, I think we're in a similar place as we were last year, which is still down from 2 years ago and still lower than it should be in a perfect world. But because he's been so good outside the arc, it's kind of masked that. So there's a couple of things at play here. One, he has to keep going downhill. The 23 free throw attempts he had against the Pacers and 17 against the Pelicans. I mean, we're talking 37 free throw attempts over the last 2 games. It's not quite SGA level, but it's close. Now, to be clear, the 7 games before that, he had single-digit free throw attempts, included a 3 free throw game, a 5 free throw game, and a 6 free throw game mixed in there. He can't only be shooting free throws 3 to 5 to 6 times a game. He's got to be in the 8 to 12 free throws a game. He just does. That means he's going downhill and attacking the basket. The other thing that's at play is he has to finish their contact a little bit better, because if he doesn't get the foul call, he's not making the shot, as evidenced by the league worst shooting percentage. Excuse me. That was mid-range. He's league worst. The restricted area, 47th out of 51 players. 5th worst in the league in the restricted area. He's not finishing through contact. He's also missing some bunnies. He missed one toward the end of the loss the other night. But it's mostly missing through contact. Like, there was one really bad layup in the first half. He just completely smoked. It was a lefty layup. He just missed it. And Chris Finch talked, I think, to the media yesterday about lefty usually finishing with his left. Ant's better historically, but he hasn't been this year. But again, I think it's more finishing through contact. So there's 2 things there. One, he goes so strong at the rim when he gets contact. He's so focused on the contact and finishing through it that there's a lack of focus there. And then the other thing is, I think he's still getting fouled so much and they're not calling it. And I know I've mentioned this a bunch. I'll bring it up again if you're new to the show, or if you're not, I'm going to reiterate. I think it's very important. There's a Shaq syndrome here. I know the free throw rate's going up. I know he shot 37 over the last 2 games. Please don't hear this as a complaint as much as an observation that Ant gets fouled more than people think he does, more than officials think he does, because of the Shaq syndrome. He's stronger than basically everyone but Zion. I don't know. Like, he's one of the strongest guys in the league as far as guys that are driving to the basket. And he's not a big. Even if you're talking like, say, Karl Anthony Towns, who pound for pound isn't as strong as Ant, but say somebody like Cat, a big who does drive from the perimeter, you're not going to get as many calls just because you're big. You're bigger than the guys fouling you a lot of times, and you kind of go through them. But Ant doesn't look like he should. He doesn't look like he should bulldoze these guys, but he does, and he gets contact that doesn't get called. You go back to the marginal contact disaster with SJ last year when he's grabbing his arm on a dunk and doesn't get a foul call. Even on replay, you can see he's grabbing his forearm. But Ant's so strong, it doesn't affect him as much as it does other players. Similar to guys bouncing off of Shaq in the 90s and early 2000s, it didn't get called as much as it should have. He basically only got foul calls when guys were trying to foul him with Hack-a-Shaq, right? It's a little bit of that syndrome. And again, don't read between them. I'm not saying he's as good as Shaq. The point is, the way Ant plays and the level of strength he has compared to the guys that are guarding him and fouling him, that's what's happening where he doesn't get some of these calls. So I think some of the bad percentages, the poor shooting percentage inside, even the non-restricted area paint attempts, is guys fouling him, not getting called, him being worried about the contact and not focusing on the actual finish because he's thinking he's going to get a foul call. I think those things both play into it. And only one of those things he can control. I do not want him to play differently. I do not want him to grift for fouls. I want him to continue playing the way he is with just a little bit more focus when he does get that contact. Because again, the shot distribution, I don't mind it. I don't mind that it looks like he's shooting less at the rim because he is getting fouled more. The free throw rate is trending upward. The body of work, if you look at it for the season, yeah, the free throw rate is down a little and the attempts inside the restricted area down a little. And back in early January, I was worried about that. I'm not anymore. That has been better. And I know it feels like Ant's not shooting threes great lately. I mean, since start of March, he's 37 for 101. So he's 36.6%. That's essentially league average. It should be better than that, right? But you go back a little bit further. You want to go to February 1, understanding these are, marginal. What's the word I'm looking for? Arbitrary dates that I'm picking. But go back to the start of February, and it looks a lot better. No, it doesn't. I'm sorry. That would be going back to January. Actually, since the start of February, he's only 35% from outside the arc, which is below league average. The volume is still there. The accuracy isn't there quite as much. If you go back to early January, he's just under 39%, which will take that on that volume, right? If he's going to take 10 plus threes a game, which he has since Jan 1, and shoot 39%, we'll take that all day. But then the next question is, can we have it all? Can Ant do it all? Can he shoot threes like he did early in the season? Can he get to the free throw line like he is now? Again, it all comes out in the wash in terms of his overall efficiency because while the three-point accuracy is down a little, the free throw rate is up a lot. And those things kind of balance out. The reason we're not seeing this thing jump to 30 points a game or consistent efficiency on a nightly basis is because he's not making those shots in the paint when he's not getting fouled. He's not, even though there's less mid-range attempts, when he does take them, he doesn't make them. He's dead last in the league in mid-range percentage among guys that take mid-range shots. So can he put it all together? I think he can, absolutely. He's got the ability to do it. The question is, can he do it at this point in the season? As banged up as everybody is at this point in the season, can he do it with, 11 games remaining on the regular season schedule? We saw how gassed Ant was at the conference finals last year. Can he fight through? Can he carry this team? I mean, the Wolves, thankfully, at this point, they're done with back-to-backs, which helps. They get 3 days off consecutively next week. Actually, two days off this weekend. They're off Saturday and Sunday, and then 3 days off next week in the middle of the week. So they should be a bit more well-rested coming down the stretch in the regular season. They're fortunate in that sense. Sorry, I said they're done with back-to-backs. They do have one more. A road home back-to-back the last weekend of the season. Their third and second to last games. But other than that, not a tough schedule. We've said that plenty. Speaking of, tonight the Wolves have the Pelicans for part 2 of the Target Center, I don't know, Act 2, we could call it, of the Target Center performance of Wolves Pelicans. So we'll talk about that, what to expect tonight. We'll do that here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our new friends at 5 Hour Energy. Daylight savings. I know it was a couple weeks ago. It snuck up on us again. And honestly, I'm still, in a sense, feeling that lost hour of sleep. 5 Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. This week, it's staying up late watching the NCAA tournament. Maybe you're trying to squeeze in a round of golf after work or just trying to keep up with your busy day. 5 Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. I'm going to say the basketball games this week, college basketball games. The Wolves playing tonight. Going to have to multi-view it, I believe, to watch the Wolves and watch some of the tournament games. And I'm going to be up late. Thankfully, the Wolves aren't on the West Coast. But there's West Coast basketball all weekend long. And again, maybe it's the extra activities. You're trying to take advantage of the extra daylight headed into the weekend. Well, head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. Need one now? Grab a 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized. All right, let's close this thing out by talking Wolves-Pelicans. Of course, the Wolves lost by 4 on Wednesday. It was a debacle. We talked on the postgame pod, the live postcast with Jack and Luke, about all the issues the Wolves had. Chief among them, effort in the first half. And offensive rebounding completely went away. A team that's been doing so much of it was out rebounded and out offensive rebounded both in this game against the Pelicans team that has a depleted lineup, albeit still has a superstar in Zion Williamson and a borderline still star in CJ McCollum and some other nice role players between Bruce Brown and Olynyk and Messi and Alvarado. Like, there are still nice players on this roster, but with no Trey Murphy. I mean, like, there's multiple guys that are out. Obviously, I guess Trey Murphy's the big one. Who's the other? My goodness, my brain just went blank. The other starting caliber player that is out for them. Anyway, shorthanded Pelicans team, not a team they should be losing to. I'm going to pull it up now because it's driving me. Herb Jones, there we go. Oh, and also DeJounte Murray. I forgot to mention him the other day, too. He had a big game against the Wolves when they played in early January. He's out for the season, too. So between those three guys, like, this is a depleted Pelicans team. And while some of the pieces are nice, like, just take a step back. This is a team that even offensively has been bad. They're 26th in the league in points per 100 possessions. So essentially, that's essentially offensive rating. They're dead last in defense. And the Wolves didn't necessarily struggle to score. Remember, late in the game, my analysis of how the Wolves played late in the game against the Pelicans on Wednesday is they got the shots they wanted. The open corner three from Nas, paint attempts from both Ant and Nas that they missed, free throws that they missed. They just missed shots. And to be clear, the game shouldn't have been that close. It was effort level the first 2.5 plus quarters. That was the issue. New Orleans played really well. Some guys shot out of their mind. Bruce Brown, I'm looking at you. Not quite to Obi Toppin levels for the Pacers game the other night, but there was some misfortune there. But effort level is the number one culprit, which I would attach rebounding 50-50 balls to that. And then down the stretch, they got the open shots they needed, but the defense faltered because, again, effort level. And then on offense, despite them getting the shots they needed against the league's worst defense, they didn't make the open shots, including the free throws. Those were the biggest problems. So the easy answer is fix those things and you'll be fine, right? But in addition, like, I'm going to highlight the offensive rebound thing because that's ridiculous. And also, the Pelicans themselves are a good offensive rebounding team. It's the only category in the four factors that they're top 10. It's actually the only top 15 factor they have going in their favor is their 10th in offensive rebound rate, 29.2%. And they've got guys like Olynyk and Zion who can do those things, and Messi. So that's a thing. Like, you got to look out for their offensive rebounding. They're also not a good defensive rebounding team. The Pelicans aren't. So the Wolves should be able to eat themselves on the offensive glass. They only had 9 offensive rebounds the other night. Nobody had more than 2. Jaden McDaniels, who's been so good on the offensive glass, did not have a single solitary rebound in that game. So glass on both ends of the floor. The Pelicans are a good offensive rebounding team. Box them out, be aggressive, get secure defensive rebounds. On the offensive glass, this is a bad defensive team and a miserable defensive rebounding team as well. The Wolves should be able to get offensive rebounds and second chance opportunities on the offensive end of the floor. The other thing would be just avoid turning the ball over, which is easier said than done with this Wolves team. The Pelicans actually aren't awful at turning other teams over. They're 16th in the league in opponent in forcing. Excuse me, no, I read that wrong. 17th in turnover rate defensively. So they can turn you over. They've got guys like Alvarado who that's what they do. And they're missing a lot of their length. No Herb Jones. He obviously feeds into that season-long number, but it's still a team you need to be careful with the ball around. New Orleans is actually number 1 in the league in frequency of running transition opportunities off of steals. They're only 11th in effectiveness, which is still good, but they're first in running off of steals. If they get a steal, they're running. Again, a lot of that is Alvarado in the backcourt probably, but Minnesota has had a turnover problem all year. It actually wasn't awful last time out against the Pelicans, but it's something you got to look out for because it has been awful for much of the season, and the Pelicans can be that team that turns you over and gets going the other way and scores in transition. The Wolves had 14 turnovers against the Pelicans, a little higher than you want it to be, but compared to some of the other Wolves games this year, and 6 of those are Julius Randle, by the way. So, Minnesota has to take care of the basketball because that's one of the ways the Pelicans can stay in the game is by turning you over, scoring in transition, and making your life difficult in that way. And then, of course, number 1 is effort. Take this seriously. Friday night at Target Center, there should be energy. I know the Wolves have struggled at home. The crowd's going to be it's Friday night though, right? The crowd is going to be, I have my own thoughts on this. I'm not going to get into it now. I'm not going to tell people how they should or shouldn't react or act in the crowd at Target Center, but the crowd will be angsty. And if the Wolves get off to a slow start, there's going to be boos. That's just how this works. And like it or not, that's what's been happening. The Wolves have to come out strong, get the crowd on their side, play well from the get-go, know that they've got the weekend off. You get Saturday and Sunday off at home, relax. Like this is a game. Don't come out relaxed to start. Come out, guns blazing, have a big start to the game. And, should be fine. Like, this is one of those games, you should be fine. So offensive rebounding, transition opportunities, all things to look out for. Next up for the Wolves after this game is Monday. Again, the weekend off. As this 5-game homestand comes to a close, and I had said they needed to go 4-1 on it, the best case now is they go 3-2, but they have to win tonight. Then they go to Indiana Monday night, which is a tough game, and then home for Phoenix and Detroit, which are not super easy games either, but obviously all winnable. Like, they're very likely to be favored in all three of these games. So they need to start another winning streak tonight against New Orleans. Of course, the live postcast will be tonight over at Locked On Sports Minnesota on YouTube. Jack and Luke will have that for you. That audio will be right here at Locked On Wolves. Wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find the postcast right here on this feed. And then I'll be back on Monday. On Monday, we'll probably talk a little bit from Wolves Pelicans tonight because there's no other games over the weekend, and then we'll get you ready for Wolves Pacers Monday night as well on that show. Big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. A reminder about the Locked On Wolves daily email newsletter. It's one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free right now at LockedOnDaily.com. Of course, the Locked On Wolves podcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Remember, the Locked On Network is your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.